we are here with Joe Gallagher. And Joe, can you, for the audience who may not know what you do, can you share a little bit about what you're doing over at Fuller Seminary?
I'm very excited to be working with Mako Fujimura, the distinguished painter, scholar, culture shaper. We have what's called the Culture Care Initiative within Brehm Center. Brehm Center, as some of you know, is basically the Center for Worship, Theology, and the Arts. It's been at Fuller for about 15 years. I've only been there for 5, but we think that the Brehm Center is the preeminent place right now for conversations about those topics.
Joe, when you talk about culture care, what does that mean? What does it look like to tangibly look at culture care and understand that?
Well, Mako wrote a book called Culture Care in response to culture wars. And Mako says that the culture is not territory to be fought over, but a garden to be tended. So culture care means basically taking good care of the people, the ideas, the communities, the values that are around us, so that we're all called to participate in an interdependent way. And certainly the Christian faith underlies all of that.
And Joe, I mean, your journey is an interesting one. You started out at law, you practiced law for a period. Talk a little bit about your journey from Harvard to law to now into the entertainment field.
Well, I've been very blessed, very fortunate. I used to say that I never had a boss who didn't treat me like a son. And then as I got older, that would imply that my boss was really old. So I guess I never had a boss who didn't treat me like a son or a brother. I've been blessed to do what I wanted to. I grew up loving movies. Never really had a strong sense of a call, career-wise or spiritually. I went to law school because I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do. And I thought that would be interesting. Even in law school, I wanted to do something related to the movies, but that was back in Massachusetts, and I didn't know anybody in Hollywood. So I had to do the one thing I really didn't want, was to practice law. So I practiced law for a couple of years with an entertainment law firm in LA. And during that time, got to know the man who was one of our clients, who was president of Universal Studios. And I was fortunate to go to work for him as a really wonderful first job as assistant to the president of what was at that time the largest and most successful studio in town.
Which studio was that, Joe?
That was Universal.
Okay.
And enjoyed. That's where I didn't go to film school, so that's where I really learned the film process.
And so your first job was assistant to the president. What happened during that time? What was your day-to-day operations or your job over at Universal?
Tommy, it was fortunate. Basically, he said to me, "You don't know anything, so for the first year, your job is to learn." He said, "I really don't expect you to produce." So he gave me an office next to his, and he said, "So people know now that you're my assistant, and every door at Universal is open to you. So go in the editing room, go on location, go in the business negotiations, and figure out what we do and how it works." And he said, "So this year will be your year of learning." And he said, "So a year from now, I'll see you every day because the office is right there." But he said, "Come back in a year and we'll spend a day or two together. Tell me what you think we can do better and different and what your role would be in there." So approximately a year later, and I saw him all the time, and we had a good relationship. We had this, for me, much anticipated meeting where I told him what I learned and what I hoped to do. So at the end of that, he said to me, and he was a very good-natured man, he used a little crude language. So with a little bit of crude language, he said to me, "You haven't learned a thing. I'm very disappointed. You need to spend at least another year just listening because you have nothing to contribute." I said, wow. So I went back to my little office, devastated, thinking I should quit. And he walked in about 30 seconds later laughing, saying, "Oh no, I was just kidding. Those are a lot of good ideas, and we're going to try to implement some of those things." So that was good. So I worked there for about 3 years. I then had an offer to go to Fox for a much, much, much better job. And so I did.
But Joe, it's interesting you share that story as you reflect upon what happened, how somebody invested and you gave a chance. How did that influence your leadership going forward? Did it affect how you invested in other people as well too?
Tommy, I believe it did. It certainly made me grateful for somebody who would mentor me, somebody who would believe in me, somebody who was generous. So as Mako writes about generativity, his word in culture care, I think that taught me the value of being generous. And I think Another thing it taught me was not to look for people with narrow specialties. I mean, my friend, president there, always said to me, I didn't hire you because of anything you know. I just hired you because I liked you and I thought you were smart and I thought you could figure out whatever you needed to figure out.
Yeah.
And that has stayed with me, to not worry about narrow expertise or training, but to just look for the best people. Best people, whatever their training may be.
Joe, I say this and I resonate with your story because after college, I spent 10 years building cell towers, telecommunications tower. My client was initially Verizon, AT&T, but I didn't know any experience. Yeah. I had a person like you who says, Tom, you know nothing about the business. So he put me in the file room and in the scanner room, but through 9 months, I learned everything about how to look at construction drawings, documents, soils report, everything. I didn't realize that was a training ground for 9 months, and after that, he promoted me to project manager.
Wow.
But he used it, and to this day, I still understand how people invest in you, but more so how you start from the bottom and learn all the details and set up systems that still benefits me to this day. And you just never know. You just never know what those experiences store.
That sticks with me.
Yeah. And then at Fox, what did you end up doing? Because you went to Fox, and then later on, my favorite, the part of the story that I love is you went to LucasArts for a little period of time.
For a while at Fox. I guess when you stay at one place long enough, you get good titles.
Yeah.
So I was at Fox a long time. But the part of my job that I loved the most was I was fortunate to be one of the people for a long time who would essentially decide what movies we'd make.
Yes.
And to oversee the production of those. And that was a joy, because I got to work with some of the most creative, most talented people, at least in the industry, arguably in the arts anywhere. And there was something thrilling about knowing that the ideas we supported, the movies we made, would be seen by, if things went well, hundreds of millions of people. And it was exciting. Plus, I loved the process. The creative process, working with truly gifted people, was wonderful. We rarely had the conscious intention of doing any societal good.
Yeah.
Basically, we're setting out to make money.
Yeah.
But we were conscious of not doing any harm. We didn't want to make any movies that were particularly destructive in terms of content that would be harmful.
Yeah.
If I look back, if I had that job today, I think I'd be more conscious of trying to plant positive seeds of good. Yeah. But the time, that wasn't foremost in our thinking.
Yeah. Now, Joe, for some of us who have never done or decided on movies, what happens? Do directors, producers come in and pitch a movie? What goes in the process for you guys to decide to greenlight a movie?
Well, certainly the most important question in greenlighting a movie is who are the people who are going to lead it, make sure you have the best director. That's the rarest commodity, is truly an outstanding director. But we at Fox, on the average, over the long time I was there, would receive about 3,000 serious submissions for projects a year. Yeah. And out of those 3,000, we'd probably buy, on the average, 200 to develop. 200, when we say we might buy the rights to a book, we might buy a screenplay, a lot of different things. And out of those, we'd make, on the average, 25 movies a year.
Wow, okay.
So the batting average from submissions to development to actual production was pretty low. There's a little bit of magic with how it comes together. I mean, it's kind of a moving target. You just try to get the right director, the right actors, the right budget. Obviously, the budget is always a consideration. Is it the right time for this subject and this theme? And sometimes it comes together. Yeah. But even with the movies we strongly believed in, the majority of them were not successful. Yeah. So maybe one thing I learned in the movie business is it's okay to fail. Yeah. Because we failed a lot. Even with the projects we believed in, 2/3 of them were unsuccessful.
Was there, like for instance, when you chose a movie, was there a certain criteria that you personally resonated, a certain type of director you were looking for, a certain type of style movie that you personally resonated with when you chose movies?
I don't think I individually had a style. I think our management team over a period of time, we certainly wanted to do stories that had international appeal. Yeah. Increasingly conscious of, we weren't making movies for the U.S., we're making movies for the world. Always wanted to have a product mix of action pictures, comedies, and serious dramas, so try to make a reasonable mix. But there were times when the mix didn't quite suddenly a lot of good stories for serious dramas would come along. And we'd say, gee, we need more comedies, but hard to find. So the rarest commodity really is just a good screenplay.
Yeah.
And when you find a good screenplay, you just try to find the people who will make it.
Joe, let me put you on the spot a little bit. Is when you look at action movies at Fox during your time, what was the one action movie you were proud of that you said, man, I really am proud that I was involved in that?
Well, if you consider the Star Wars movies, action movies, we love the Star Wars movies. They meant a lot to us, obviously financially. But I think that they were artistically, especially the first 3 Star Wars movies were exceptional. I think the first Star Wars movie was when I just got to Fox. That looked completely unlike anything people had seen before. So it was dramatic. So we were very, very proud of that.
Yeah. Well, drama or comedy?
Well, I'm actually picking a couple from the early days because those were, I think because I was a kid, I was excited. Maybe some of the early ones were especially meaningful to me. We did a project with Mel Brooks and Gene Wilder called Young Frankenstein.
Yes.
But I still think it's the funniest movie I ever saw. I love that movie, and it was really fun to be part of that. In terms of dramas, a lot. There was a film called Julia with Vanessa Redgrave, Jane Fonda, directed by Fred Zinnemann, won a lot of Academy Awards. Really deep, moving story that we were very proud of. Later on, Titanic. I mean, Titanic certainly was
you were involved with Titanic.
Hugely successful, and it meant a lot to Fox.
Got it. Was there, if you look back, actor, actress, which was one that you really particularly enjoyed or said, man, I have to have that person involved in my project?
In terms of directors, filmmakers, or
filmmakers, actresses.
Well, in terms of filmmakers, I guess we Fox had a long relationship with Mel Brooks. Did a lot of movies with Mel. Was truly the funniest person I ever met.
I loved his movie Spaceballs a lot.
Oh,
very well done.
Spaceballs, as you know, was a spoof on Star Wars, and did very well. A lot of writers over the years. We had a long relationship with Alvin Sargent, who wrote Julia, among other things, for us. Story about Alvin Sargent that to me typified part of why I love the movie business, the quest for excellence among the really gifted people. When Alvin won the Academy Award for Best Adapted Screenplay for Julia, when I congratulated him that night, he said to me, an hour after he won the Academy Award, he said, "You know so well that if I had more time, this could have been really good." And so his standard was, even though he just won the Academy Award, could have been better.
Yeah.
So a pleasure to be with people who have that quest to do something special.
Joe, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about my favorite subject, Star Wars. What was your role on the Star Wars project?
Well, on the Star Wars projects, I was a senior VP of production at Fox, so I was one of the people overseeing all of those. Certainly, primary credit at Fox should go to Alan Ladd Jr., who was the president there, who was very close with George Lucas, who believed in the project, who got the resources to do it. But I was, part of the executive team overseeing that. And then I left Fox for a while to become president of ILM, the Lucas Special Effects Company, which was great fun because that was the technology side of the movie business, really the cutting edge of things, and enjoyed that.
Yeah. Let me ask you specifically about Star Wars, because right now, these days, we have CG, everything like that, computer animations. Back in the days, you didn't really have a lot of those things. How did you guys visualize and think through all the different special effects, which are, to that period of time, was phenomenal during that time?
Really all the credit goes to George Lucas and secondarily to John Dykstra. John Dykstra, who was the special effects director for the movie. George visualized a world that didn't exist before, and George had a strong sense that he could put together a creative team, a technology team to do that in a way that hadn't been done before. There were a lot of doubters, there were a lot of failures along the way, but when we saw it, we were amazed, really. But really, Fox didn't put together the special effects team. George did that very much himself.
Joe, when you, as a Christian, if I say, hey, you spent so much time in the movie business, how did you integrate your faith into what you do every single day? How did that go about showing in how you created, how you led, what movies you decided? How did your faith drive you? How did it motivate you in a lot of those things?
Tommy, in a quiet way, I certainly didn't talk about it a lot. I think there are, just like I believe a lot of people in other industries have misconceptions about Christian higher education, about what at a seminary people are being trained to do. They don't realize they're being trained basically to engage in the culture. I think similarly, a lot of Christians have misconceptions about the movie business.
Yeah.
I think there's a repository of bad values and weird people, and there are some of those. Maybe I was one of them. But there's a lunatic fringe to the movie business. The great majority of people I worked with, very few of whom were Christians, were fabulous people who loved each other, loved their families, cared about their community. As a Christian, I was certainly conscious of the impact the movies would have, conscious of trying to treat people around me well. And I think we had a culture during my time at Fox where we cared about each other.
Got it. As you now are running and being involved in the Brehm Center, what is your hope as you continue to really reflect upon your journey and what's next? What's your hope for the gospel, not only in Pasadena, but in terms of your role in terms of affecting culture?
Well, I think that Brehm Center is important. I think that Mako's work is very, very important. There are certainly a lot more people who would like to hear from an artist than who would like to hear from a theologian. So I think the Brehm Center, especially Mako's work, is a very wide gate into telling people about Jesus. So I believe the arts should be and will be at the forefront. And I'm excited that Fuller agrees with that. That Mark Labberton, the president of Fuller, prioritizes the arts as Fuller moves to a new location. Mark has said the arts will be in the vanguard of setting both the vision and the implementation in a new home. So but no, absolutely, Mako's call to culture care is a way for people who are. There's a sign at a church in Pasadena that says, "Are you spiritually curious but institutionally suspicious?" That's a lot of people, especially younger people. And I think Brehm Center in the Arts is a way to bring people who are spiritually curious into a dialogue with Jesus and his message that's enduring. So, I think Brehm Center is important.
Thanks. Hey, last question, Joey, and we're going to wrap up. For those who may not always understand the arts, like for some, I spent most of my time in the business, management, accounting field. For you, what is one phrase, one description about why art is so important as we talk about gospel and culture and things like that?
I'm quoting my friend Mako because I think he's such an anointed, uniquely important messenger. Mako says that God is the only true artist, and that artists basically reflect his beauty and his generosity. So I think that the arts are a way for people to see God not just in the physical world, but to see God in goodness, to see God in each other. So I think artists really are the prophets of our day, and I think the church of the future will recognize that and put artists clearly with the Christian message at the forefront of how we reach a wider group of people.
You got it. Joel, thank you very much. Yeah.